You know your son is struggling. You may have heard he might have ADHD, depression, anxiety. Which one is it? So here's how we tell. If you're new here, my name is Agam Dewan. I am a board certified psychiatrist and a child and adolescent psychiatrist. So it's my job to diagnose and treat mental health conditions. So here's how we can tell the difference. I'll tell you a story. I had a 18-year-old kid come in one time. And so this kid came in for ADHD complaints. He said that he had trouble focusing, he couldn't get stuff done, motivation was difficult, it was hard for him to sit still, a lot of those type of things. And then when I talked to him, we really dug down for an hour, and he was a college student. So it turns out that he was actually exhibiting a lot more depression symptoms than ADHD, like the low motivation I mentioned, a low energy, the poor concentration, even some thoughts about not wanting to be around. So a lot of that was at the forefront. And the reason that's important is because that can create like a brain fog that covers everything up. So in his case, we actually started with a medication called Wellbutrin because that mainly targets depression, but then it's got a side of ADHD benefit too. And that made a huge difference for him, more than I think just directly targeting ADHD treatment would have. So here's the key differences between all three of those. With ADHD, that's mainly a disorder of frontal lobe hypoactivity, meaning that the frontal lobes are not as active as they need to be. So what that means is that they have trouble with focusing, concentrating, they might get distracted easily, they might interrupt others, they might lose track of conversations, they might get up and pace around a lot, they might find it hard to sit still. All of these are frontal lobe functions. So what that means is that, your frontal lobes are the brakes of the brain. They are the CEO. So they tell you that, hey, we need to function this way. We need to act in X or Y way. But if it's not functioning appropriately, then, you have those symptoms. So that's why stimulants really help with ADHD, like Adderall, Vyvanse, Concerta, because stimulants stimulate the frontal part of the brain. So shocker, right? Yes, that's more ADHD. Anxiety is more worrying, stress, mind's always racing, a lot of those stuff. And so when you have those type of things that going on, that's more anxious. And so the reason that anxiety and ADHD can play together is because anxiety can cause concentration problems. So some people who think they might have ADHD, really they have anxiety. And then once the worrying stops, their focus gets a lot better. And then depression is low mood, energy, concentration, motivation, unalive thoughts, feeling guilty or suicidal thoughts, all that, and persisting for weeks at a time and lasting for most of the day. So that's more of depression side of things. And you can have concentration problems associated with depression too. And you might say, well, what does it matter? These are all labels. Well, the reason it matters is because the treatments differ. So the treatment for anxiety disorder, it can be different than the treatment for a depressive disorder, right? It might use different medications, which is definitely treatment different than the treatment for ADHD, where I might use a stimulant or a non-stimulant like guanfacine or Strattera. So that's why it matters, because the treatment matters. The therapy makes a difference too. Therapy I would do for depression would be different than, like, when I do CBT, than for therapy for, let's say, ADHD, which might be ADHD coaching or impulse control stuff. So that's why that matters as well too. So now the question is, right, like, how do we figure this out? Like, what diagnosis does the person have? This is where coming to see a psychiatrist is really important, because we're trained to tease out the little differences in these disorders, right? So that's important. So the way that we do that is we get a history. And so we get the history of all the symptoms you've had, when they started, how they've progressed, how they've impacted your life. And so then we can tease out which is which and like where the problem is coming from. We can also get information from parents, so from you, mom, from teachers. Oftentimes we'll give the teachers a rating scale, and they'll take the rating scale to school to figure that out. And we can also try different treatments too. So sometimes we can try X or Y treatment, and if one treatment doesn't work, the other treatment might work better, right? So that'll let us know whether it's more of a depression issue or if it was a ADHD type of issue. So lastly, it's important to just get the diagnosis right because that impacts the right treatment. And so if you want to get help for yourself or for your son or your child, then feel free to book a consult in my bio. And yeah, we can go from there. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in a future video.